What's up, data pipeliners? Welcome back to another episode on writing data pipelines with Kedro. I'm your host, Data Engineer 1, and today we're going to be talking about working with zip files. Zip files are the most common way, or one of the most common ways, to compress file formats. And working with zip files with Kedro can be a little bit awkward. So today I'm going to show you a custom data set that you can use to work with zip files, as well as introduce a brand new package that you can use with your Kedro projects. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, what I've got for you guys today is a very special package that I'm just releasing. This is the Python de1 package. It's available on PyPy, so all you have to do is just type in pip install de1, and you get access to a whole bunch of datasets that I personally find very useful. I'll be covering more of these datasets in the future, but for now, let's just focus here on the zip file dataset. The zip file dataset is a very simple dataset that allows you to uncompress zip files and extract files from that zip file to make available in the pipeline. The zip file dataset allows you to only extract one file at a time from zip files, but I think that for most use cases, that's actually okay. Opening up an example pipeline that I have here, so I'm going to type in Kedro run and the tag first. And so here actually is an example of generating pipelines programmatically, but maybe that's something that we can talk about in a little time. And running this first tag, as we can see, we're loading from the zip file dataset, and then we are decoding it using X because it comes in as a byte array by default. Then we're reading that byte array using the decoded byte array as a CSV. And then finally, we're just using a very simple length to count the number of rows and print that out. And the row count here, of course, is 2. So the zip file itself, very simple zip file. All it contains really is a .csv file. So for the very first zip file, we have here just a first.csv that is located in there. Now that's great and all, but most CSV files are not going to be a single wrapper around one file. Sometimes, and actually a lot of the times, CSV files will contain more than one file. And in this case, with this third.csv file, we actually have an issue. Multiple files are found. And again, the zip file dataset doesn't support multiple files. Perhaps later on in the future, we can create a new dataset that accepts an entire zip file as a partition dataset form or something like that. But for now, just extracting a single file at a time is the purpose of this dataset. And you can see here, this dataset has multiple files that are inside of it. We have a first.csv as well as an ignore me file. File ignore me, we want to ignore. Now, in order to get the proper file that we want to use, we have to add a little bit of a filter here. The zip file dataset supports this filter called zipped file name suffix, which means that it's going to filter out any file names that do not have this particular suffix, which means that we actually get to ignore the ignore me file since it doesn't have a .csv file name suffix. Of course, the other problem that arises is the cases when you have the files that are the same suffix but different names. In this case, it's actually very simple to address. Again, using a special option, we can actually type in the zipped file name for the particular file that we want to use. And this can be either first.csv or second.csv. And it's going to explicitly choose that file in order to run the pipeline. And you can see the pipeline works just fine. Now for this other example, what sometimes happens is that zip files will have multiple directories. And in this case of second.zip, we just have one directory where the first.csv is located inside. By default, it's going to still load the file just fine. So if I type in tag second, it will work all right. But in the cases where you want to pull out an explicit file from a certain directory inside of a zip file, you would use the file name option, and then you would actually use a relative path. So in this case, dir/first.csv. and there it can pull out exactly the CSV file that we want to use. One more thing that I'd like to mention about this dataset is just how easy it is to use with any kind of datasets that you might already be using inside of Kedro. Now, I know that the pipeline I created here may seem a little bit complicated, but this was only to show you the kind of step-by-step procedure that happens with the current zip file dataset. In reality, the zip file dataset does support its own dataset configuration, very similar to how incremental dataset or partition datasets support this feature. Modifying the pipeline really quickly to show exactly how different it looks. All I need to do is remove every single other line and just simply assume that the dataset is going to output a pandas CSV. Going into the catalog.yaml file, I can actually now use the dataset option and just simply type in pandas.csv dataset. Running this pipeline here, we can see that it does work exactly as expected. The zip file is going to extract the file and then load the file using this pandas.csv dataset. And this means that if you need to use any kind of custom dataset, for example, a PDF file dataset, then you will be able to use that dataset to extract the data from your zip files. And that's it with the zip file dataset. It's a fantastic dataset that I use when working with zip files. And again, this is now available inside of the de1 package. And in order to get this package, it's incredibly simple. All you have to do is type in pip install de1. And this package will include not only the zip file dataset, but multiple datasets that I use quite often. And so here, to import it into the catalog, we have de1.zip.zipFileDataset. There's a few more examples on the README itself. Unfortunately, it's still a little bit sparse README at the moment, so please bear with me while I work on that. As always, thank you for joining me today. And if you guys like this content, make sure that you button that like, sub that subscribe, and ring that ding if you want to know when we are pipelining. And if you have any questions, make sure to hit us up at the Kedro community board, and we can discuss more about these packages, datasets, and anything related to Kedro. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.